Hung in the mist the day every media outlet in Hong congratulated Adrienne on the birth of his daughter, someone thrust a microphone at me, his lawfully wedded wife. I curved my lips into a faultless smile and answered in a flat voice. A daughter is such a comfort. I wish him well. It's hardly surprising. We're long past the age to become parents. The paparazzi pressing around me wanted drama and fired one more question. And you, Vance? Aren't you afraid Vance will divorce you to marry someone else? I handed the microphone back. I'm ready whenever he is. Late that night a man who'd come apart at the seams burst into my room, eyes bloodshot. I refuse to believe you could ever love anyone else. Serena, who gave you the right to toss me aside? One by dawn every reporter in Hong was celebrating Adrienne's new arrival. In the leaked clip Adrienne wore a crisp black tailored suit, cradling a baby wrapped in a swaddle as though she were made of crystal. Beside him stood Vivian, still pale from giving birth. The secretary who once scheduled his every meeting had ended up scheduling herself into his bed, and now onto his pillow. Reporters and paparazzi alike, sincerity optional, beamed and offered congratulations while the perfect little family basked in the crush of flashing bulbs. Vivian's smile was gentle, gracious, grateful. And I, Adrienne's legally registered, cathedral-married wife, sat in the back of my car watching the heartwarming footage on loop. Sterling, we've arrived, the chauffeur said quietly. The moment I stepped out, reporters camped at the tower entrance surged forward until I was underwater in camera lenses. A forest of muzzles jabbed within inches of my face. A few fearless paparazzi shouted over the rest. Vance, your husband just had a baby girl, any comment? Did you know Lynn was pregnant before the press did? Rumor says your marriage collapsed months ago and you filed for divorce 4 weeks back, true? A young reporter stumbled as the crowd shoved, barely catching herself before jamming her microphone against my chest. Vance, is there anything you'd like to tell your husband about the child? I stopped and swept my gaze across the sea of hungry faces. Tugging the corner of my mouth, I spoke as though commenting on the humidity. A daughter is such a comfort. I wish him well. A collective hush, then a soft communal inhale. I continued, voice unruffled. It's hardly surprising, after all, we're long past the age to become parents. Vance, will you be kicked out of the family now? The same young reporter demanded, blunt to the point of rudeness. Head swiveled toward her. I might as well have been deaf, no offense registered. Everyone knew Adrienne and I had produced no heir in 5 years of marriage, while his mistress had just delivered. Of course they assumed I was hemorrhaging inside. A question like hers was only logical. Bodyguard and security waited in, clearing a corridor toward headquarters. One reporter, unsatisfied, fought to the front and rasped, Sterling, what's your game plan? Aren't you terrified Adrienne will use the baby to divorce you and install Vivian as Vance? My stride hitched. I glanced back. Thank you for calling me Sterling instead of Vance. For that courtesy I'll answer. Instant silence. Even the cameras hesitated. If he wants a divorce, anytime, anywhere, I'm ready. Bedlam erupted. Shutters fired like machine guns as I straightened my spine and walked on. The press conference ended in late afternoon. I worked past 8, then drove to the Vance family compound, 6 white-roofed villas terraced into the hillside with unbroken views of Victoria and paparazzi-proof seclusion. Inside, housekeeper met me and took my coat. Madam, the master returned half an hour ago. I murmured acknowledgement. Adrienne and I had occupied separate floors for a year, he on 3, me on 2, our paths calibrated to miss. Tonight the orbits intersected. After I removed my makeup I studied the mirror, same face, different years. I'd spent them jet-lagged, extinguishing PR fires, defending stock prices, swapping time zones. Youth had been filed away flight by flight. The balcony doors stood open, night air salted by Victoria drifted in. I poured a finger of Cabernet and stepped outside, watching neon garlands glitter across the water. Hung after dark is always a champagne flute one sip from spilling. A knock. Probably Crawford with warm milk. I tightened my robe and turned the handle. Adrienne filled the doorway. The black tailored suit from the video had vanished, only a white shirt remained, collar yanked loose, tie clip dangling like a snapped cufflink. Whiskey rolled off him in waves. Serena, he bit out, you told the city you'd divorce me? Dream on. I won't sign. When I stayed silent his temper climbed. Why aren't you screaming? I had a child with another woman, doesn't it gnaw at you? Say something. I set the glass on the table, momentarily blank. The entire scene felt ludicrous. 3 had this broken 5 years ago, back when I still loved him, I'd have smashed every breakable object in reach, raced to his office shrieking betrayal, and ended up a cautionary tabloid harpy waving receipts at cameras. But that was then. I had knelt, heart in both hands, worshipping every breath he took, terrified he might not love me back. Now the altar was empty, the god had toppled. I no longer loved him. Therefore, no longer cared. Strategic marriages run on assets, not affection. The title Vance remains my best access card. While I wear it, even the wolves downtown remember whose crest is etched on the gate. I've traded on that cachet and won. Hardly a bad bargain. Whom he sleeps with, impregnates, or idolizes, why should it register? He couldn't absorb my indifference. I don't believe you. You have to care. I laughed, one soft exhale. Believe whatever you need. Serena. My name cracked between his teeth. You used to go nuclear if a woman blinked at me. Now all of Hong Kong. Now's I fathered a child with someone else and you shrug? How? Are you trying to act magnanimous in front of me? Be careful you don't overplay it. Adrienne stared at me as though he meant to scrape every last trace of pretense from my face. He was doomed to fail. No matter what he said, no matter how he provoked me, I would not lose my composure. Not caring was simply not caring. The rims of Adrienne's eyes were turning red. He grabbed my wrist. Serena, how did you become like this? I instinctively twisted free and spoke with thin patience. Adrienne, people change. The old me caused you trouble, now I've figured things out. I'll uphold the public decorum and boundaries a Vance is supposed to have. And I expect you to respect me and keep the distance a strategic marriage demands. Don't you love me anymore? Meeting his gaze, I couldn't help a soft laugh. I couldn't blame him for wondering. After all, I had once loved him so fiercely. I had treasured every flicker of his mood. I had fantasized about loving him for the rest of my life. Every moment with him had filled me with joy. Yet in the end, what had all that love gotten me? For even now I remember how ugly Adrienne's words had been back then. We're married, not shackled together, okay? Serena, have a little self-respect. Why make one person your whole world? I don't get why you keep trying to possess me, to control me. I said I don't love you anymore, that I don't want that kind of intimacy. Are you listening? You want a reason? Fine, I've slept with another woman. Is that enough? I cheated. Is that enough? I even badmouthed you to her. How's that, enough yet? Word after word, sharp as blades. They shattered every illusion. They left my heart in tatters. It took me forever to find myself again, to patch that riddled heart. Yet now, after I've sheathed every Crawford and weakness, Adrienne comes asking whether I still love him? How ridiculous. Looking at his reddened eyes, I felt a surge of satisfaction. Once I had worn the same confusion, the same unwillingness. Like a madwoman I had sliced open my own heart, offering him all my love on a platter, desperate to shout, look how much I love you. Now our roles were reversed. Adrienne, I said calmly, there's no longer any love or not love between us, is there? Rather than talking about love, call it a partnership. Business marriages always end up, you do your thing, I do mine, didn't you say that yourself? You gave me the title and perks of Vance, and I keep the Vance backyard quiet. Mutual profit, what's wrong with that? With every sentence Adrienne's face grew paler. He stood frozen, confusion thickening on his features. I knew he felt awful. The Vance crown prince, fond over since childhood, of course it stung to have something snatched away. But it wasn't because he loved me. He simply couldn't stand it. Couldn't stand that the once obedient possession he could summon or dismiss at will had slipped every leash. Serena, he rasped. We've been married 5 years, we've faced everything together. In your eyes it's only ever a business deal, a collaboration? What else? I turned, leaned back against the sofa, indifferent. Did you really think we had some grand romance, Vance? How laughable. You imagine undying love could bloom between the two of us? Don't be naive, the Vance-Sterling alliance was always about merging assets. I used to be childish, got carried away, cramped your style while you chased true love. Now I see clearly. Since you say it's just business, let's play separately and stay out of each other's way. As we argued, Adrienne looked on the verge of collapse. On what grounds? Serena, what gives you the right to just switch off your love? 5 I stood without a word. Adrienne forced my shoulders around, making me meet his eyes. When the reporters claimed Vivian had my baby, what were you doing? Were you sitting there reading your quarterly earnings, coldly calculating how to squeeze the last DRO P of profit out of this deal? I didn't flinch. After a moment I laughed mockingly. What else should I have done? What did you expect? Each answer bleached his face a shade whiter. Adrienne, I said, gently brushing away his hand and smoothing the silk pajamas he'd wrinkled. We're adults, let's keep some public decorum. Whatever you do out there, whoever you play with, whoever gives you a child, I don't care and I won't interfere. As long as it stays off the front pages and doesn't smear the Vance or Sterling names, I can pretend I don't know, even cover for you. But if you keep poking and prodding like a child, testing my bottom line, I won't mind reminding you I hold a few things that could nosedive Vance stock. For example, how that overseas project of yours was actually landed last year. I'd hate to leak the details. Adrienne's face stiffened. How do you know about that? I smiled, said nothing more, and opened the door. It's late. Head home, Vance. Oh, and give Lynn my regards. Thanks to her for helping the Vance family carry on the bloodline. Adrienne hesitated, then turned and left. The heavy door shut out every sound outside. I crossed the thick carpet and settled back onto the sofa. Turning, I looked at the tall mirror beside the dressing table. At last I had become the woman I wanted to be. Calm, decorous. No quarrels, no tantrums, profit above all. This serenity felt less like self-control than total numbness after every ounce of love and strength had burned away. I stayed only to use the convenience of being Vance to wean myself off every last dependency on Adrienne. The process was brutal, but gradually I saw results. Tonight, face to face, I felt no pain. In a strategic marriage, feelings are the cheapest commodity, true leverage is forever. Once I'm strong enough, no longer needing the Vance umbrella, I can walk away without a backward glance. 6 the next morning, I'd just reached the stairs when Crawford greeted me, her expression odd. Madam, the Villa A. T. Repulse Bay called. The old madam wishes to see you. All right. I hesitated, then nodded. Repulse Bay was where Adrienne's mother lived, my famously pedigreed mother-in-law. Her timing was transparent, she wanted either benefits for her newborn granddaughter or to soothe and warn me. I sat at the breakfast table and sipped my espresso. Tell them I have a key meeting this morning, I'll visit afterward. Crawford exhaled in relief. Yes, madam. After clearing urgent work, I drove to Repulse Bay as promised. The housekeeper ushered me in with deference. My mother-in-law was in the rose garden, pruning a double-bloom rose with graceful movements. Mom. I stepped forward and greeted her politely. She lifted her head, set down the shears, and the well-cared-for face wore its habitual smile. Serena, come, sit, try the shortbread the chef just made. We settled in the conservatory overlooking the garden, and Vance herself poured me a cup of Earl. This tea was sent by a friend of Adrienne's, delicious, taste it. After a few bland pleasantries, she sighed and finally came to the point. That child Adrienne always acts without thinking, you've been wronged. My hand holding the teacup paused. Mom, it's not that serious. Since the child is a Vance, there's no reason to shortchange her. Vance studied my expression, as if hunting for a trace of reluctance or resentment. I kept my composure, indifferent to her probing. After a moment she chuckled. Serena, I'm so glad you see it that way. She stepped closer and clasped my hand, voice dipped in persuasion. In the end, you're the one who's suffered. Serena, you are the Vance family's lawfully wedded daughter-in-law. Nothing can change that. The flowers blooming outside can never stand on the main stage. No matter how flamboyant, they fade overnight. What you need to do now is stay steady, give the family its rightful heir as soon as possible. Only then will your position be unshakable. Suddenly I felt exhausted, I almost sighed. But swallowed it. Reading the surrender in my face, she patted my hand again, as though giving a guarantee. Don't worry. As long as I'm here, no one will step over you. I nodded and quietly slid my hand free. In truth, I had guessed what she would say long before I came. In our circle, every feeling is counterfeit, only profit is real. At bottom, Vance is a Vance, she will always consider the family first. Even when her son fathers a love child, a mother's concern is the family's public decorum, bloodline, and placating the daughter-in-law so she keeps playing her supporting role. I don't really blame her. Sometimes I think she has it hard too, abandoning normal thought, forever wearing a mask, turning herself from a living person into an emotionless program. 7 on the ride back, carsick, I nearly retched. Slumped against the soft seat, half asleep, the floodgates of memory opened. The first year of our strategic marriage, Adrienne and I met privately many times. It was less a business alliance than mutual affection. He had good breeding and a handsome face, with far less frivolity than other playboys. Objectively, he was prime husband material. I even studied the subject he loved most. At first he met me at his family's arrangement. Between eloquent sentences he confessed he liked me. 3 years later we had shed all formality and were famous in the city for our closeness. He knew my dream was to trek across glaciers and snowfields and film a documentary on rare Arctic flora. I knew that beneath his impassive public mask lay a heart that, once in a while, pounded for thrills. Racing. No one else knew the Vance heir loved hurtling down a track, only me. After we truly knew each other, I flew overseas with him 4 times, watched him rocket onto the circuit. I sat in the stands, anxious, willing him to win more fiercely than he did. If nothing had gone wrong, our marriage would have stayed a legend, retold in ballrooms for decades. But something did go wrong. Adrienne's heart changed. He had spent his life surrounded by carefully polished society heiresses, so when bold, sprightly Vivienne appeared, he was instantly hooked. By the time I noticed, it was too late. In front of him I unlocked his phone and scrolled through the flirty chats. At first he was startled, then admitted flatly, he had fallen for Vivienne. I couldn't accept it, I raged, screamed, threw things. Adrienne watched coldly, the contempt and disgust in his eyes still carved into me. At the year-end charity gala we arrived together. Vivienne had somehow wrangled an invitation and showed up too. Whether by accident or design, she twisted her ankle while leaving. Adrienne dropped my hand in front of the guests and rushed to her. He left me standing there, soaking up pity and sneers from every side. That night I called him dozens of times, sent scores of texts. All sank without reply. Finally I saw the front page scoop in the Hong Times, Adrienne carrying Vivienne to the hospital, then escorting her home. The ugliest moment came on our 4th anniversary. I prepared a painstaking dinner and waited past midnight. Adrienne stumbled home drunk. When I stepped up to steady him, he hugged me, murmured over and over, Vivienne. I was thunderstruck, shoved him away. But he was unconscious, repeating that name. The housekeeper helped him upstairs. Before I left I heard him mumble, if I weren't married, could I marry you? I froze. Thunderstruck again. In the days that followed Adrienne stopped coming home, or rather, he had another home. At first I clung to the delusion that shared memories would win him back. Until the cruel words kept falling from his lips, until he pushed me away again, and I finally admitted, the man I loved no longer loved me. From that point on I learned to expect nothing, ask nothing. To numb the pain I threw every minute into work, afraid to pause, terrified that idle seconds would drag me back into anguish. Soon after the wedding I had used my dowry plus assets the Vance family provided to start my own company. The road was rough, but the years paid off. By the time Adrienne and I broke, the firm was ready for an IPO launch. I stayed in the Vance mansion only to secure that milestone. On the eve of listing, every antiquated board member must sign an NDA, no divorce or scandal can surface. As founder, I will set the example. If enduring a few more months under this roof buys my goal, so be it. As long as I expect nothing from this marriage, it cannot hurt me. For an entire year I did not cry over Adrienne, did not rage at his tabloid headlines. I no longer cared where he spent his days, whether he came home at night, or whose face smiled beside his. I tried my best to play the part of a proper Vance, showing up at every important function on his arm, keeping up the appearance of harmony. At the beginning of the year Adrienne had been pleased with my composure and discretion, he even praised me for finally knowing my place. A few months later he started acting strangely. He began asking where I was going, fixing me with unreadable eyes and demanding whether there was anything I wanted to tell him, then growing restless for no reason. I met every question with perfect calm. Again and again I cut the conversation short. Adrienne was convinced I was playing hard to get, that I was manipulating him, my indifference barely registered. Only when his love child was born and I offered no reaction did it seem to dawn on him that the woman who once saw him as her whole world had vanished. And tonight he looked rattled. The Adrienne who had tossed me aside like worn-out shoes for 2 straight years, could he actually panic? How entertaining. 9 That afternoon I was in a meeting when Emily slipped in, pale and tense, and whispered, Sterling, Lynn is downstairs with the baby, she insists on seeing you. My expression didn't flicker. Escort Lynn to the guest lounge. I'll be down shortly. What must come, will come. Adrienne's decision to stay quiet had finally driven his meritorious heroine to make her own entrance. Fine, better to settle everything at once than deal with sniping later. I pushed open the door to find Vivienne on the sofa, cradling a swaddled infant. She wore the latest Chanel suit, her makeup flawless. The moment I entered she straightened, a smug smile curving her lips. Sterling, sorry to barge in like this. Lynn, what can I do for you? I settled onto the opposite sofa, crossed my legs, and let my gaze drift to the baby. Vivienne patted the child, speaking casually. I just thought I'd take the little one out for some air. Adrienne says I've earned rest after the delivery, so I should stroll when I like. I was passing your building and figured I should say hello. After all, we'll probably be seeing a lot of each other from now on. The bragging, the insinuation, clear as day. I gave a soft laugh. You've just given birth, Lynn, you should conserve your strength. As for seeing a lot of each other, I doubt it. My schedule is packed, hardly any free time to entertain. Vivian's smile froze, she hadn't expected such a blunt brush off. She sucked in a breath. Serena, I know you're upset, but the baby is innocent. Adrienne promised he'll give her a legitimate title. Title? I lifted a brow and set my glass down. What title? Eldest daughter of the Vance family? Lynn, are you confused about something? As long as I remain Adrienne's legal wife, your daughter will forever be a love child. I suggest you accept that. The words struck the very nerve she tried to hide. Her arms tightened around the infant. Don't get cocky, Serena. Adrienne loves me, I just gave him a child. How long do you think you can keep your seat? How long I sit is decided neither by you nor by Adrienne. Lynn, really, begging for scraps of affection from a man who can't keep his pants zipped, who dishonors his marriage and shirks responsibility, does that feel like victory? I didn't wait to watch her cheeks flush and blanch. I walked to the door. Turning, I added, one reminder, next time, book an appointment. My office isn't a wet market, not every stray cat or dog gets to wander in and yell. The fallout from announcing the divorce hit faster, and harder, than I had imagined. My father called that very night, anger crackling down the line. Serena, have you lost your mind? You can't divorce the Vance boy. The economy is tanking, half the Sterling projects are tied to Vance capital. If you walk, they'll pull out and cut our supply chain, Sterling will collapse. I held the phone, saying nothing. I had foreseen every syllable. In our rarefied stratosphere, a daughter's happiness is expendable, balance sheets are not. Dad, I cut in, Sterling won't die without Vance. Easy for you to say. If the Yank funding were finished, he roared. Then let it finish, I replied coldly. Better bankruptcy than spending my life on my knees, trading my pride for leftovers. The line went silent. At last he spoke, voice shaking. Serena, you never used to be like this. Are you still sulking about Adrienne? Men play around, it's normal, especially someone of his stature. Close one eye and it passes. Apologize to him, call this off. I hung up. My chest felt tight, but the overwhelming sensation was release. No more shackling myself to a hollow union for the family ledger. At 7 that evening Adrienne strode into my office. Serena, we need to talk. I set the quarterly report aside. There's nothing left to say, Adrienne. Direct your questions to my attorney. He stared, incredulous. Why are you being so stubborn? I never said I wanted a divorce. Can't we just go on like this? No. I was silent a long while before answering. I suppose I'll always be the hypersensitive, obstinate type who refuses to bend, who would rather pull the world down than swallow a single thorn. You're a brilliant dealmaker, Adrienne, maybe the life you propose is the most efficient. I admit, our empires are weld ed together. But efficiency isn't enough reason to spend the decades ahead suffocating. Adrienne barked a humorless laugh. Divorce isn't your solo decision. You never even warned me, why drop it like a bomb? I rose. What's wrong with divorce? Marry Vivian, problem solved. Marry her? I wouldn't make my mistress a wife, what would people think? I told her to have the kid, Vance money can foot the bill. But the minute she left the hospital she summoned a horde of reporters, plastering the scandal across every tabloid. The public humiliation, she'll pay for that grandstanding. If kicking up a scene wouldn't make things worse, I'd have throttled her on the spot. I listened, then answered evenly, Adrienne, your character is even filthier than I imagined. I'm not granting you a divorce. A manic glint flashed in his eyes. Watching Adrienne insist on clinging to me, I couldn't help mimicking the way he'd spoken to me back then. Adrienne, look at yourself, what a sight. A complete lunatic. Can't you act like the scion of a blue-chip dynasty? Dogged persistence isn't your style. Why are you latched onto me like a stray? Adrienne's face drained to chalk. Serena. I flung his hand off. Adrienne, do those lines sound familiar? They're exactly what you said to me. Remember now? I'm giving public decorum back to you now. No tantrums, no scene, I'm leaving of my own accord. Why can't you take it? No. Serena, He fumbled for an explanation, words tangling. The office door burst open. Vivian had somehow bulldozed her way in. Zonin, you can't do this to me, she shrieked. I gave birth to her. What right do you have to take my child away? Adrienne's expression darkened. Who let you in? Why can't I come? Vivian pointed at me. Is it because of her? Is she why you threw me out? I watched the farce with ice in my eyes. Lynn, your drama has nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with you? Vivian spun toward me, hatred glittering. If you hadn't kept stalking him, he'd have married long ago. I almost laughed myself sick. Stalking? Lynn, need I remind you who crashed our marriage? Your marriage was a mistake from day one. Vivian screamed. Zolan loves me, always has. Enough. Adrienne barked. He signaled security. Escort Lynn out. Zolan, Adrienne. You can't treat me like this. Vivian held as security dragged her off. Silence resettled. Adrienne collapsed onto the sofa. Sorry you had to witness that circus. Circus is right, I said curtly. Clean up your private mess before you try discussing business. Adrienne, how far do you think the Vance stock price would tumble if I ordered my outlets to dig into every skeleton in the Vance closet? I'd rather not fight to mutual annihilation, it's messy and undignified. But push me, and I won't mind turning this into headline fodder. At last Adrienne left. 12 by year end, after months of paperwork, Adrienne and I finalized the division of assets and divorced. That same quarter my company completed its IPO launch and landed 3 consecutive international projects. The tranquil pond of Hong Hai society rippled. The name Serena no longer lived as a footnote to Vance, it now occupied its own seat on the boardroom map. My career stepped onto a new stage. Partnership inquiries flooded in. Negotiations turned smoother. Contacts who once demanded the Vance brand as an entrance ticket now booked time to meet President Sterling as an equal. My father's attitude executed a 180. He stopped hinting I should crawl back to the Vance clan and quietly began sliding core Sterling assets onto my plate, calling it training. I accepted every share, no questions asked. Whatever his opinion of his daughter, tangible benefits stay in my fist. News of Adrienne reached me in fragments. They'd fought again, he and Vivian. She'd wanted a bigger slice of stock and a legitimate title, he'd refused outright. In retaliation she leaked reams of Vance confidential data. The board of directors grumbled about his performance and threatened impeachment. After stepping down he turned sullen, haunting bars alone. I heard it, registered it, felt nothing. After New Year I represented Sterling at a major industry summit. I lifted my eyes and spotted Adrienne a few yards away. He'd lost weight, his tailored suit hung loose. Dark bruises ringed his eyes, his skin dull. Our gazes crossed. My mind stayed flat calm. Pain, regret, longing swirled in his. The plus one beside him, new, even younger than Vivian, sensed the shift, followed his stare, and regarded me with wary curiosity. I looked away and resumed conversation. When the summit ended I headed for the exit. A voice called from behind. I turned. Adrienne. Serena, he rasped. Can we talk? Just a minute. I checked my watch, tone flat. Sorry, I have a meeting. 5 minutes, he pleaded, eyes rimmed red. I swear, no wasted words. 13 I hesitated, then walked to a quiet corner. He followed, awkward. Serena. He began. I know it's too late. I'm not asking forgiveness, just. I need you to know I regret it. Serena, I regret everything. I should never have treated you like that, never have chosen Vivian. He broke off, a 30-something man lost. I studied him, inner surface unruffled. Adrienne, I said at last. Your regret means nothing to me. I gave you endless chances. I met his eyes, word by deliberate word. When I still loved you, I wept, raged, begged. You answered with coldness, mockery, disgust. Now we're divorced, where do you get the nerve to say you're sorry? I started to leave. He stopped me again. Serena. If Vivian hadn't happened, if none of the harm, could our ending have been different? Is there any chance? None, I cut in, crisp. Why not? Because from the start we were never on the same road. I held his gaze. Adrienne, you're arrogant and despicable. What I wanted was respect, equality, to be seen as a person in my own right. You could never give me that. He stood silent. I walked out of the hall for good. That nig. I dreamed. I was back at the wedding 5 years ago. This time, when the officiant asked, do you take this man? I shook my head. Then I stepped out of the cathedral, sunlight on my face like a new life. And, registration no, YX19X2JMTD1Q21D90XNCX75A, resources compiled by Frostfall Shorts, trial reading only, do not distribute. Download more shorts at https://link3.cc/mymz.